Honorable Chairpersons and members of the Joint Committee, I appear before you today to vehemently oppose the Protection of Sovereignty Bill 2026 in its entirety. While cloaked in the language of patriotism, a careful legal analysis reveals that this bill suffers from fatal constitutional defects, including unjustifiable limitations on the fundamental rights, dangerous vagueness, and an unconstitutional subversion of the multi-party dispensation. In our current political climate, where the state keeps persecuting people and state persecution has forced opposition leaders and critics out of the country, this bill ceases to be a theoretical threat. It is an immediate existential danger to political pluralism, economic survival, and Uganda's standing in the global community. To appreciate the gravity of this bill, I invite the committee to examine the chilling day-to-day realities that this law will create across all sectors of Uganda if passed. 1. Reclassifying Ugandan citizens as foreigners. The most insidious provision is hidden in Clause 1, which defines a foreigner to include B, a Ugandan citizen residing outside Uganda. There are numerous Ugandans who live in the diaspora, and they remit over $2.5 billion US annually to our country. All these citizens are going to be deemed foreigners by this law. When did this government cease to care about its citizens to the extent of regarding them as non-citizens? Consider a political leader born in Uganda, a registered voter, and a duly elected party president who is forced into exile or out of the country due to state persecution. Under Clause 1B, the moment that citizen crosses the border to save their life, that law strips them of their Ugandan identity and reclassifies them as a foreigner. Because Clause 1 defines an agent of a foreigner as anyone who acts under the direction or control of a foreigner, and Clause 2.2a says the act applies to anyone who engages in political activities, for or in the interests of a foreigner. The domino effect is devastating, Honorable Chair and members. Imagine a party official in Kampala receives a WhatsApp voice note from this party president who is out of the country, instructing them to coordinate some party activities. Under this bill, by following those instructions, the party official here in Uganda is guilty of engaging in political activities for a foreigner who left the country. Under Clause 14, they face 10 years in prison. Under Clause 5.4, they face 20 years in prison. A local party administrator or aide, simply doing their job by taking instructions from their leader, becomes a felon. If Ugandans live abroad, suppose a Ugandan doctor working in London pays $100 US, roughly 380,000 Uganda shillings, into the bank account of his local political party in Kampala as membership dues. Because the doctor in London is considered a foreigner under Clause 1B, the local party treasurer has just received foreign funding. If this pushes the party's annual foreign funding to over 20,000 currency points without the minister's approval, the treasurer of that political party faces 20 years in prison under Clause 22, and the funds are forfeited to the state. This is not right. By placing a cap on foreign money, which includes diaspora remittances to parties, the Minister of Internal Affairs is handed an absolute veto over opposition party financing. If the minister dislikes an opposition party, he simply refuses the written approval for their diaspora funding. The party is financially suffocated by state fiat, directly violating our country's constitution. Let me talk about the unconstitutional overbreadth and vagueness of this law, this bill. The legislative drafting of the bill fails the constitutional test against vagueness, granting the executive arbitrary power to punish dissent. This is the catch-all foreigner. Clause 1E allows the minister to declare any person, institution, or body a foreigner. Suppose a local trade union stages a strike demanding higher wages, embarrassing the government. The minister can simply sign a statutory instrument declaring that trade union a foreigner, Overnight, the union leaders become unregistered agents of a foreigner and they face immediate arrest. How can this be right? Clause 22H states that the Act applies to anyone who influences the public to oppose the policy of government. As the leader of the opposition, my literal duty and the team that I work with is to oppose government policy that is injurious to the citizenry and offer alternative policy positions, which we do every so often. A local civil society group running a radio talk show explaining why a new tax is harmful could be jailed for 20 years. That's problematic.
To me this morning that if we maintain that a Ugandan resident abroad is a foreigner and cannot participate in politics, Uganda Law Society will be shut down. Isaac Chimaze Semakade has been in exile for 1 year plus. He's abroad. He's running Uganda Law Society. He would be deemed a foreigner. And Uganda Law Society would be deemed agents of foreigners and would require to register with the Minister of Internal Affairs. I'm not going to bet as to whether we would be registered. Yes. Now, even Ugandans resident abroad on official duty, our foreign service officers, would be foreigners. There is no exemption provided for them. Now, on this point, I would like to tackle the Attorney General's statement that we must focus first on Clause 2.2, and deal with that as we understand the bill. The Attorney General's argument is that the bill only tackles agents of foreigners who participate in activities under Clause 2.2. And there are many activities listed there under. Okay? But the definitions of foreigner, agent of foreigner, are in such broad terms that they capture literally every ordinary, commercial, professional, family, or charitable relationships that have no connection with foreign political interference or undermining of sovereignty. Now, we all need to be looking at the bill. I want to demonstrate that the bill uses the word agent of foreigner in a particular way. It also uses, when it's creating offenses, it also uses the expression a person. It also uses the expression or other person to demonstrate that the bill is not restricted only to agents of foreigners under Clause 2.2. And I would like to start with the biggest contention, Clause 21, requiring registration when you receive monies. It says an agent of a foreigner or any other person. And the drafting team can tell us, when you use the expressions parallel like that, okay? When you use the expressions parallel like that, you're referring to different things. You can't be referring to the same thing, okay? There's another provision. If you look at clause, when you use the expression in two expressions side by side, they refer to different things. They are not referring to the same thing. Like clause 21, which says an agent of a foreigner or any other person. The expression any other person is now dealing with somebody else apart from an agent of a foreigner. In clause 62, 64, 83, 84, the list is long. The expression there is a person or an agent of a foreigner. So this clearly shows that the bill's reach goes far outside agents of foreigners. Now, for the Attorney General, I would give him one word, one four-letter word, if he wanted to resolve this issue. He should have said, or the bill should have said, in clause 2.2, okay, that this law applies only to, and that's a four-letter word, only to foreign agents of foreigners who do the following. Or it applies to agents of foreigners who do only the following. 4 letters, four-letter word, one. That would resolve that issue. And you'd also remove 2(1), which says it applies to agents of foreigners generally. The whole concept of sovereignty and how this bill inverts a constitutional principle of sovereignty. And it vests in Article 1 of the Constitution. All power belongs to the people, who shall exercise their sovereignty in accordance with the Constitution. Power belongs to the people, and they shall exercise their sovereignty in accordance with the Constitution. Now, what the bill does, rather than protecting the people's sovereignty, the bill transfers the practical exercise of this sovereignty and places it in the hands of the Minister of Internal Affairs. It is the minister who determines who is a foreigner. By extension, who is an agent of a foreigner. It's the minister who determines which activities fall within the Act by statutory instrument. He also determines who may register and on what conditions. He also determines who may receive funding. The same minister may suspend or revoke registration at any time without prior notice. This is a single appointed official. He now becomes the gatekeeper of our civic participation, determining which citizens may engage in policy advocacy, receive funding, or operate organizations with any foreign connection. That's not protection of sovereignty. That is displacement of sovereignty. In Charles Onyango Bo, in clause 22G, the bill seeks to criminalize influencing the public to oppose the policy of government. What we are doing right now is to oppose the bill. That will be criminal when this bill passes. Okay. Charles Onyango Bo Constitutional Court said the free flow of information and ideas is essential to the democratic process by which people exercise their sovereignty. Clause 11 also purports to protect the electoral expression of the people's will under Article 1(3), but the definition of agent of a foreigner is so broad it would include domestic election observers, civic education organizations, and media outlets, all of which are essential to the free and fair elections that Article 1(4) of the Constitution requires. So the concentration of this discretionary power in the minister is fundamentally incompatible with Article 1, vesting sovereignty in.
About the minister giving permission for any additional payment. I think, yes, 15.
15, no?
Yes. Why don't I just proceed with my transaction normally, but with the duty to declare?
I think that you talk about 22, that's what I'm being
Yes,
told.
then you criminalize.
A person or agent or foreigner shall not directly or indirectly obtain, solicit, or receive any financial support, donation, loan, or other assistance from a foreigner, whether in cash or in kind, in the excess of 20,000 currency points within a period of 12 months without the written approval of the minister. You are saying that?
We are avoiding a situation where you literally criminalize transactions. You only criminalize activities. Other than seeking permission, let me transact, I declare, and if I am found not to have declared or even committed a crime, so be it, then you charge me. But the moment you say written permission, you're taking us back to Idi Amin.
Yeah, and not necessarily that everything was bad. I think there was some good even then. So, no, I'm telling you that those people who don't look at the past to try and figure out where they're going, even that experience was an experience that teaches us. Now, I think here what they are saying is that if you see, when you apply, you make the application for your registration as a foreign agent, and they are saying that in any given year, if you want to get money, you are a foreign agent. You're registered as a foreign agent. You want 400 million, don't even bother going to the minister. You register as a foreign agent, and they know that so and so is there as a foreign agent. That person can get 400 million shillings in a year. And for 400 million shillings, they don't need the permission of the minister. But if it is past 400 million, if your plan in that year is worth 10 billion, then go and get written approval. So,
But you do not find it derogatory to refer to somebody as a foreign agent, even as you speak.
Again, that is for the committee. We can come up with a better,
derogatory.
better
No,
nomenclature.
this is, you see, for me, I speak law. The definition I'm using here is a definition in law. So that is what I'm talking about. And
22 is not restricted to a foreign agent.
that's
It's
what
not
I'm
actually
reading.
saying a person
Or an agent of a foreigner
or
shall not directly or indirectly solicit financial support or other assistance from a foreigner, whether in cash or in kind, in excess of 20 currency points.
yeah. So even when I am not using, because this one now is divorced from two.
Yes.
Even when it's not for purposes of two, so I have no right. I have no right to solicit except with the approval.
Yes, so if you're soliciting for money from a foreigner, that's what the provision is saying. If you're soliciting for foreign support, past 400 million, get permission, get approval.
No, his point is transaction and what if he actually goes on so that you don't curtail transaction, but he must declare.
Well, I think
So that business doesn't come to stand still for purposes of seeking permission.
This
And
law,
the exception should be for those who are under application.
Two, but
of
22
two.
is not under two.
Okay.
Now 22 is bringing in others
22 is
outside
not,
the
is not only
provision
foreigner
of-
or agent, any
no.
person.
no, commits an, if it is, if that is the clarification you went for purposes of 2.2, that we can do.
That we can.
Because this act, you see, and I think for me it's a drafting thing, because the application of this act, the application of this act in section 2, everything you read in this act should be read to apply to only this. Because this is the application question. So you cannot talk about anything else other than this act only applies to this. So this is the application. So you can clarify it and make it better English and repeat it and say, as stated in, as per the application of the law. But you see, this act applies to a person who is an agent of a foreigner. This act. So don't ask me who has no dealings with a foreigner under this act. I have no business.
Exactly. Now 22 is saying a person or an agent of a
So
foreigner.
a person
remove the
still,
person.
even the
An
person,
agent, yes.
even the
Even a
person
as long as he's doing activities under 22.
under 2.2, this it does not relate to my grandmother in the village who has no dealings with a foreigner. You cannot come.
So your grandmother can solicit with from a foreigner.
My grandmother can solicit from a foreigner so long as they are not
He's not
dealing
doing activities
under
two.
2.2.
Okay.